Hey guys, thanks for taking the time to check out this walkthrough of how to build a vocal in-ear mix using the Behringer P16 in-ear units. I'm going to take the approach from scratch, and I encourage you guys to start each mix from this starting point. If you'd like a more detailed explanation of how to set things up from this perspective and this starting point, go ahead and check out our controls overview tutorial, and we do a little bit more detailed walkthrough with that. So the main thing before I plug my ears in, I'm going to come to this unit and I'm going to make sure that everything is turned down to 0. And what this is going to do is set me up for success with ensuring that I've got enough headroom in my mix. But the most important thing for this reason is when I plug my ears in that I will not be potentially damaging those ears with anything too loud. And so I've got everything zeroed out there. The next thing that I'm going to do is make sure that I'm setting myself up for success when actually adjusting all the volume of my ear mix, and that's by adjusting the master gain. So there's the main button here. You want to select that, turn that all the way up. You want to take your level here, and at least somewhere around 75% is usually a good place to start. And what that's going to do, it's going to ensure that you guys have plenty of headroom in your mix for your specific instrument and for everything else, and that you don't have to turn yourself up so high that you should be able to have a respectable volume, and that will give you enough clarity and headroom for your entire mix for the entire set. So another thing that I'm going to do from setting up a vocal mix is I'm going to adjust a few things on EQ. I'm going to make sure that I'm going to roll off a little bit of my lows. I may keep the mids at about noon. And I'm going to actually boost a little bit of this treble here. And what that's going to do, it's going to give me just a little bit more clarity. And when doing this, I'm making sure that the main button here is selected. Otherwise, these controls will not control the right parameter. I'm selecting the main and making these EQ adjustments. And these EQ adjustments is going to clean up my overall ears. It's going to make sure that the vocal intelligibility is at its highest level, and it's going to set us up for success. So for this specific demonstration, our main vocal is going to be vocal 3 here. And I'm going to play some tracks here in a minute, but before I do that, I want to go over a few things, kind of goals of what I'm trying to achieve. So when I start to blend in, I'm going to start with pulling up my specific dry vocal sound. And when I set this, I'm looking for what's a comfortable volume for me to listen to myself for the entire set. And when I have that set, that volume that feels comfortable, I'm going to make sure that I stay accountable to that volume. And by that, I mean, as I bring in the rest of the band, other elements, I'm going to make sure that nothing is going to compete or overpower the volume that I originally have set my vocal to. What typically happens is when we don't do this, we will start adding in the rest of the band, and then what happens is you end up turning everything up, and you turn everything up, and then you can't hear yourself, and you turn yourself up, and before you know it, everything's up, and you still can't hear anything. So we're eliminating all that. We're maximizing headroom, which is making sure that we have room to go up, room to come down, and we're cleaning up how to get a good mix so that we can hear all the detail on stage from the rest of our bandmates. So let's go ahead and put some of this into practice. I'm playing some tracks here. We're going to start with, like I said, our specific vocals. This is from the perspective of the vocal. Vocal 3 is going to be the main vocal for this song. A few other parameters I want to go over is we're going to see how we can make ourselves not feel so isolated, where we can be able to use both ears, keep both ears in, and be able to have enough realism in what's going on so that we don't feel so isolated, and we can be still engaged with the room and ultimately engaged with what our band's doing and with the Lord and where He's leading us and how we are to lead our congregations and how we are to lead the rest of the band and not be stumbled by not being able to hear things. So in doing that, once we bring our main vocal in, so let's bring that in a little bit. Let's get a comfortable level. To my rescue, and I wanna be where you are. So that feels pretty good to me. Maybe a little bit loud, so let's bring it down just a touch.
Call, and you answer.
Okay, I'm gonna pause this for a second. Notice how we already are achieving a solid level of our own source, being the vocal, and how much headroom we have. We have so much room we can go up, and we also have room we can go down. And this is the goal. If when we are first dialing our instrument in, if it doesn't look like something like this, then our gain structure is off, and we want to make sure that that's set. Another thing that goes into this is checking during sound check, making sure that you're checking your instrument, your vocal mic, at a level that is going to be the same loudness as when you are actually singing. And so that will make sure that the signal coming into this unit is at its correct state, and it's not going to vary throughout rehearsal. Very little. It won't vary throughout the service. And you can make sure that your mix stays consistent throughout the duration of the entire set. Another thing that we're going to do that I'm going to show an example of here in just a second of how do we make it feel more real. If we are to have both ears in, sometimes that can make us feel isolated. We hear more of just our head voice, and honestly that can be a little muffled and not what we're used to hearing. So in this particular setup, we have this verb channel over here. What this is going to replicate is the more we bring that in, the more it's going to sound like it does when we are actually in the room. So if we were just in any room, any venue size, we are to sing, we hear the reflections of our voice. And this is going to be emulating that. So we're not going to bring it in a ton to wash out our vocal, but just enough so it feels real. Additionally, we're going to bring in the room mic. So this is going to be an aux 4 for this scenario. And that's going to give us a level of engagement to what's going on in the room. How does it sound? So if we were to pull an ear out, that's what we're going to be hearing. And so by blending those two, we're going to try to get as close to what it sounds like with our ears out as it does, obviously, with our ears in. Keeping both ears in is going to be a way for us to protect our ears, and then levelizing things down to where we have headroom, where we're not driving things too hard. That's going to prolong our hearing, which allows us to do what we do for as long as possible without having any hearing damage. So let's bring these tracks back in, and let's work on some of those parameters.
And I call, and you answer.
So I may bring this up just a little bit.
And you came to my rescue, and I wanna be where you are.
So that feels pretty good as far as setting a level. Let's bring in some verb.
In my whole life,
so I'm going to go too much. So that obviously sounds too washed out. So we want to bring that down a little bit to where it feels normal.
In your presence at your throne, I call. And I call.
So that feels a little bit more normal. Without, it's very dry. With,
and you came to my rescue,
and then let's bring in some crowd.
I wanna be where you.
And I'm not going to bring this in very much.
And I call, and you answer.
And that gives us a little more realism of what it sounds like if we were to take our ears out. But now what we need to do, I'm going to pause these tracks for a second. Now what we need to do is be able to, okay, we're now engaging with ourselves by having a little bit of realism with the verb. We're engaging with the room by having some of the crowd mic in there. Now what we want to do is make sure that we're on time. And so for vocalists, sometimes the click is not, you do want to have some click, but you don't want that to be your main source of time. A lot of times what can happen is you get click bleed out of your ears, and then that can bleed into your microphone, which then ends up bleeding into the PA. And so a better source is going to be using drums or any source of percussion element that you have, and let that be your consistency for time. And so all of your timing, you may use a little bit of click, for the beginning of the song. So keeping it when the band comes in, you kind of don't hear the click anymore. You're kind of switching to being on tempo with the drums. But when songs are starting, you can utilize the click to make sure that you can hear accurately. So let's go ahead and start with that, and then as from there, we're gonna be able to anchor. We want to anchor ourselves to pitch. Guitars, both electric, acoustic, bass, all those things are things that are getting tuned constantly throughout the entire set. One thing that's not getting tuned that we can count on is the keys. So the keys are going to be able to represent perfect tune, perfect pitch for us to reference to. And so as we start, it may feel like we're setting up for a piano only set, but as we build the rest of our mix, we can feel that out. But we want to make sure that we're anchoring our pitch to something that's going to be reliable. And so let's bring some of these elements in. Just a little bit of click. So as songs are starting, this gives me enough to listen to. But I'm going to want just a little bit of drums too. And this is a softer part of the song, so there's not a ton of drums going on. So we may come back to this.
My whole life I placed in your hands.
But you can definitely hear those overheads keeping time, and that's what's important. Now let's bring in some pitch elements with the keys. Now I don't want these to come up too much to where it's overpowering my original vocal, because we already set that volume and we don't want to exceed that.
And you came to my rescue, and I wanna be.
So we really want to lock in with time and pitch right here, and this is the most important part of our entire mix.
And I
now to fill out the rest of our mix, let's bring in some other vocals. So we can bring in vocal 2, and we can pan these based on where they are. So we may take one and put it on our right side. And this is going to give us separation in our mix and more clarity. We'll wait for that vocal 2 to come in. Let's go ahead and bring our vocal 1. We'll put this on the left side. We may bring that up a little bit too.
And you came to my rescue. Wanna be where you are.
So we're bringing these vocals up. So vocals are obviously harmonies. You want to harmonize and set this at a level that you can be in touch with one another throughout the set, and you're not having to change during different song leads. With throwing those panned out hard left and right, if you don't have both ears in, this is hard to achieve. But with both ears in, you get more clarity. Maybe you don't want them that wide. You can bring them in if you'd like. But that gives you a little bit more separation, and you can focus on your own vocal. Now, we want to connect with the rest of our band a little more, so if we want to bring in some electrics, these aren't going to come in a ton, but just a little bit. So I'm going to go too much. Obviously, that's clouding my mix. So let's bring that down. Let's bring vocal 1 down just a touch. This one, I'm going to add a note. Hold on, pause this music. I'm going to add a note here. One thing that's good about panning things too is if you pan things and you know that vocal 1 is hard on your left, pan hard left, and vocal 2 is pan hard right, or whatever the scenario is. If you feel like your left ear is distorting and your right ear is not, then that's a good indication that you have that channel up too much. And so it gives you an easy way to track down what might be too loud and what might be competing with the rest of your mix, and it's an easy way to troubleshoot what needs to come down. It's a lot easier to bring things down than it is to keep boosting things up. And so, still keeping accountability with our whole mix. Vocal 3 is, my main instrument here for this context, and so we're making sure that stays as priority, and we're not going to ever overpower that. And then the rest of our mixes, I'm going to bring these tracks back in. We're just kind of filling out so that we know we have a little bit more sense of context of what the rest of the band's doing. So we'll bring in a little bit of electric again. Electric 2. That might be a little much, or if you want more electric, you can keep that up if that helps you. And then just to fill out the warmth of everything, we can bring the bass in. And so with this mix here, if I were to just close my eyes and listen for everything, can I hear the drums in my time? I can say yes to that. Notice now I can hear the click if I listen to it, but it's not necessarily competing for anything. But if I need to listen to it in a soft moment, I know that's going to be there. Can I hear the keys and give me perfect pitch still? And some of that's training and listening to the keys throughout the duration of the set, just to make sure that you're singing on pitch. You can hear the bass. It gives you more of a feel of what the energy in the room is. You can hear both these electrics, and then you can hear the harmonies. I'm going to turn these tracks back off. So with that overview there, you get to hear everything. Nothing was competing with one another, and I'm not having to push things so loud that my ears are hurting at the end of the set. So keeping this is a good way to keep everything balanced. You keep both ears in, and you're able to have an honest sense of what's happening in the room, what's happening on stage with the rest of the band, and then at the end of the day, your ears aren't hurting, and you're able to continue worshiping in other contexts if you have more sets, multiple sets throughout the day, and you're eliminating ear fatigue there, and you're able to also have a honest evaluation of what's happening on stage and in the room, and ultimately allows you to lead more effectively. So I hope this was a lot of help. If you have any other questions and want to see more examples or anything, feel free to reach out to our team. We'll be more than happy to help you guys out in any way possible. Until then, we'll see you guys next time.